Here is a number that should wake you up. The average AI product manager in San Francisco is pulling $250,000 in base compensation. Not total compensation, base compensation. In India, AIPMs with just a couple of years of experience are hitting 45 to 65 lakhs in their compensation. Regular PMs with the same level of experience are loitering around 25 lakhs to 30 lakhs per annum. And here is the thing most people are not going to tell you or are not going to talk about. There is no formal degree for this. No one's checking if you have an AIPM certificate on your LinkedIn. The people landing these roles right now have figured out the game before everyone else has caught on. And that is what this video is. I'm going to give you the exact 90-day roadmap, week by week, phase by phase, to go from, hey, what is this AIPM? Looks interesting, to I just got the offer of an AI product manager at a top company. Whether you are an existing PM who wants to upskill or a fresher trying to break in, this is your playbook. No fluff, no theory, just the exact moves that you need to do to get into the role of an AI product manager. With that, grab something to take notes and let's go. Before we jump into the roadmap, let me clear up the one thing that everyone is overcomplicating right now. What actually is an AI product manager? Forget the textbook definitions, forget what everyone is saying. Here is the real picture of what an AI product manager is all about. A regular PM ships features, talks to users, writes specifications, prioritizes a backlog, and manages stakeholders, coordinates with engineers, launches, measures, and all of that. You already know this. The system is very deterministic. You put in X, you get Y every single time. For an AI PM, the difference is that you are dealing in probabilistic systems, which means that you may put X in, but you might not get Y, or you may get Z, or you may get Y.5 or something like that. The models that they learn, they drift, they hallucinate, and your job is not just to ship features, it's actually to manage these predictions, to evaluate the outputs that come in, to monitor the drift and make judgment about all of these things together. And that is why the AIPM role is such a technical yet sought after role. But, and this is an important part that a lot of people miss, the fundamentals don't change. User empathy, problem solving, stakeholder management, these are all still part of the job. AI just adds a new layer on top. Now, you don't need to be an AI PM who's building the foundational model at OpenAI. That's actually core AI PM work, and you need deep ML and data science jobs for that. Most of the opportunity, and I mean literally most of the opportunity, is in applied AIPM. You're taking existing models, APIs, tools, and building products on top of them. Think Notion AI, think Grammarly, think Cursor, think every company that's adding AI features to their product right now. All of them require applied AI PMs. And that lane is wide open. That lane has so much opportunity right now for you to grab onto. Now, who is this roadmap for? This roadmap is for you if you are an existing PM and AI is eating your roadmap. You need to skill up really fast. You're switching from engineering, design, marketing, consulting, and AI PM feels like the right landing zone for your career to go up. Or you're an early career or a fresher and you want to enter product through the AI door right from the beginning itself. For all three kind of people, this works. One more thing, this is not just a roadmap. This is not about executing a small piece of things one by one. It's not a reading list, not 47 hours of watching a YouTube video. You're actually going to build things in this roadmap. I'm asking you to ship things. I'm asking you to have proof of work by the end of this roadmap on day 90, which is why extremely important for you to lock in and take note of every single thing I'm going to tell you in this video. Cool? Let's get into it and let's talk about phase one. The first bucket is the AI and ML fundamentals for a product manager. Now, this is the basics which you're going to cover in your first 2 weeks of this plan. You don't need to understand backpropagation. You don't need to derive loss functions. You actually need to understand concepts at a level where you can actually make certain product decisions. Here is what you need to cover in this first couple of weeks. The first thing is, of course, what are ML models and how do they actually learn? Understand supervised versus unsupervised learning, know what training data is and when does it matter, know what model drifting means, basically when real world data stops matching your training data and you get unexpected outcomes. Understand how this whole ecosystem of machine learning really works. Very theoretical but important base. Then move to the big one, LLMs. Know what LLMs stand for. Understand generative pre-trained transformers, which is GPT. Know what retraining means. Why is it expensive? Why is it risky? All of that. Know the difference between the model and the product built on top of the model. Then quickly move to predictive AI versus generative AI. Of course, generative AI is the one that is crucial, but understanding this difference is so important for you to start building a career into AIPM, because only when you understand Gen AI can you actually start implementing it in your daily workflow. Now, predictive AI, for example, has been around for years. Google search ranking, Netflix recommendations, your bank catching a fraudulent transaction in your account when you've not done it, right? These are use cases that that have been here forever. Most of this is still AI driven, but it's predictive AI driven, and most of the AI is actually still here. Generative AI is the new wave, the contextual content creation that LLMs, that large language models can now do. They can generate code, they can summarize it, they can generate images, Cursor, Midjourney, ChatGPT, all of them. That is where the main money is, and that is where you have to go. You have to understand as a PM when each type fits, right? Not every problem is a Gen AI problem. Sometimes a good old predictive ranking algorithm is cheapest, fastest, and the best to implement. But you need to understand when to apply what. Now, here is where most people get this wrong in my experience. They go too deep too fast. They sign up for a full-blown ML engineering course, spend 3 weeks on understanding neural networks, find it extremely complicated, lose motivation and quit. I've seen this happen dozens of times with the people I coach at Ayuda. Understand that you are not becoming an ML engineer. You are becoming a product manager who speaks AI. There is a massive difference in this. Once again, do not over-index on ML. That is not going to lead you to a way where you can become an AIPM. Now, of course, there are a few resources that I would like to recommend for this phase. Andrew Ng's AI for Everyone at the Coursera, genuinely the best starting point. Easy English, understandable for PMs, for everyone, the best starting point for AI right now. Andrej Karpathy's Intro to LLMs, which is another great video. It's about 3 hours, but gives you a legit mental model of understanding how LLMs work under the hood. And then go ahead and read some customer stories on OpenAI's website, on Anthropic's website, on Google Cloud's AI page, etc. This basically will show you how real companies are actually using AI. Build yourself a database of these use cases, and then you will understand where and all you can actually use AI for your own good as a product manager. Right? Go to openai.com/customers or Anthropic's customers website, study real use cases, and that is when you start catching up. Oh, this is how people are actually using AI right now to make a difference into their products. Now, the second bucket is the AI product stack. This is what you really need to know as a product manager inside your AIPM stack. Typically, week 2 to 3 is where your focus for this has to be. You need a working knowledge of, number one, contextualization, which basically means how do you make a generic LLM useful for a specific product. There are 3 levels to contextualization. The first, which is something you must have heard several times, is called prompt engineering. This is where you tell the model or you give the model context through a prompt, which is an English text. And this is how products like ChatPRD work. Good for 80% of the use cases when you're starting up. Remember, prompt engineering is that important. Second way of contextualization is RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Instead of stuffing everything into a single prompt, you create a knowledge base. You convert it into embeddings, and then the system only retrieves the relevant chunks whenever the user asks something relevant. This is how, for example, Notion AI can answer what's in my project plan for tomorrow. It pulls things from your data and of course pulls relevant things from your data to ensure you get access to all the numbers and you get access to all the information whenever needed. Third is fine tuning, where you actually train the model on your specific data. Expensive, real time, but very, very powerful for niche and specific use cases. You don't have to worry too much about fine tuning as a PM. Prompt engineering and RAG is where 95% of your use cases will lie. Now, you don't need to build all of this in month one. You basically need to understand what they are, when each one of them makes sense, and when you will be able to have an intelligent conversation about them with an engineer. The next, and of course the most important, the most secret weapon here is evals or evaluations. Now in traditional PM, you test features and they either work or they don't, right? Typically that's how a QA bug tests things. In AIPMs, your outputs are non-deterministic, which means that your LLM might hallucinate, produce incorrect information, or just essentially be wrong and confidently wrong. Which is why the second thing after contextualization that you have to understand is, what does evaluations mean? Think of it as a check whether your output is factually correct, follows the right format, is free of bias, doesn't have any latency, and so on and so forth. You can use a combination of code to do this, you can use a combination of LLMs to do this, and so on and so forth to evaluate whether the answer that's given to you by your model is correct or not. Right? So two things so far, contextualization and then evals. Right? In this bucket, there is one thing that you have to doubly index on is evals. Because evals is the new QA for AIPMs. The PMs who can design great evaluations are actually worth their weight in gold right now, because evals is a skill that no one else has right now. Now the third bucket is the tools or the tooling layer. Get hands-on with AI tools. I cannot recommend this enough. You need to get hands-on with AI tools. Not even at a level where you are in depth with them. Just at the level where you can claim that, yes, I have used this tool. Start from ChatGPT and Claude, obviously, but use them like a PM, not like a consumer. Experiment with system prompts, user prompts, test their use cases, generate PRDs, notice where they are failing, generate launch documents, and so on. Then move to Cursor, Lovable, and V0. AI-powered prototyping tools. These let you go from an idea to a working prototype in hours, not weeks, hours. And as a PM, this is your superpower. You can validate ideas without really having to wait for engineering bandwidth. And very, very important, many companies check this in their interviews. Then you go to basic SQL, where you don't need to be very expert at it, but you do need to learn SQL in the sense that you have an understanding of the basics. That helps you get in the door faster. Then finally, use AI features of Jira and Linear. Don't need to again go very deep into it, but just a basic understanding is good enough. And then lastly, go ahead and experiment with Zapier, N8N, etc. Build simple automations for your workflow. Even if you've never touched this, these tools are extremely simple for you to build their workflow from scratch, and they will handhold you step by step so that you can create a workflow for yourself. Just observe what you do day to day and automate it on one of these tools. Now, the fourth bucket is the mental model shift. Right now, all of this, the tools, the learning, the knowledge is great, but the subtle but important thing that happens in month one, if you do this right, is your mindset starts shifting. You stop thinking of AI as some magic box that you don't know about, but you start thinking about it in a very specific sense with their strength, limitation, and cost. There is an AI triangle, which is latency, accuracy, and cost, and you start optimizing for it. Right? You start understanding that as a PM, these are the trade-offs that we have to optimize for. As a product manager, in my experience, you can pick 2 out of the AI triangle. You can pick 2 out of latency, accuracy, and cost. And here's a framework that I really love from Marty Kagan that applies perfectly. Now, every product has to be valuable, which means that you have to ensure that the user needs it. It has to be usable, which means that users should actually be able to use it and not just get lost. It should be feasible, which means that the engineering can build it, and it should be viable, which means that the business model should work. Your job as an AIPM is to primarily be in the valuable and viable quadrants, so that you don't fall into the trap of spending all of your month one just to master basics like feasibility. Right? That is how you have to ensure that your first month ends. If you're following this roadmap well, then by day 30, here is what you should be able to do. You should be able to explain the difference between predictive and generative AI with real examples all around you. You should be able to describe what RAG is and when you would use it versus prompt engineering and fine-tuning, etc. You would understand what model drift is and why continuous monitoring actually matters. You should also have an opinion on whether a given product problem should be solved via AI or not. And you should have used at least 4 to 5 strong AI tools, either prototyping or otherwise, to have built something of your own. If you are able to do all these 5, then you are ahead of 80% of the people who say that they are trying to become an AIPM. 80%, right? Which is why the foundation, the first 30 days are absolutely critical for you to move into the direction of becoming an AIPM. Now let's talk about day 31 to 60 or phase 2 of our roadmap. This phase is all about getting your hands dirty. Month 1 was about learning the language. Month 2 is now proving that you can actually speak it. This is where most AIPM aspirants stall. They keep consuming content, one course after the other, one article after the other, one newsletter after the other, one podcast after the other, and don't really build. And they get stuck into this loop forever. They don't get their hands dirty. And that's why you have to look at it. The first thing that you have to do to get your hands dirty is to conduct a product teardown. This would be week 5 and 6, but it would have to be in an AIPM way. Giving a very simple example, pick 3 AI powered products. Don't pick random ones. Pick products that you actually use. Perplexity, Grammarly, Notion AI, Cursor, ChatGPT, anything that has meaningful AI features. Now tear them down like a PM, not an engineer, like a PM. There is a template that I have attached with this video for you to perform that tear down. To give you an overall idea, for each product, answer the following questions. What user problem does this AIPM product solve? Is this predictive, generative, or both? How is the product contextualized? Prompt engineering, RAG, or fine-tuning? What is the UX pattern for handling AI uncertainty? Streaming confidence indicators, fallbacks, etc. What metrics do you use to measure success of this product? Where can this product fail? Where can it hallucinate or underperform? And how are you going to improve this product in the next quarter if you were the PM there? Write each of these answers properly. Put it on a Substack, LinkedIn, or on your website. This is the beginning of your AI portfolio. Now, let me tell you something that I constantly see at Ayodhya. Someone comes to me and says, hey, I built a product using Lovable. Great. I ask, what problem does it solve? No, nothing. It was just a minor improvement. I asked whether they validated if the need of the product is there. Nothing again. I asked how many people have actually used it. 0. Building something from a single prompt is not really product management, let alone AI product management. The thinking behind the building, the thinking behind what you build is real AI PMing. Your teardowns and case studies prove that you can think. So don't skip this step and build this teardown properly. The template is in the description of this video. Week 6 and 7, now you're into the thick of it, is to build the side project, where the rule is to solve a real problem that you actually have. If you don't have that problem, don't solve it. It could be personal, could be professional, but solve your own problem. Why? Because if it's your own problem, you understand the need of it. You understand the pain point and you understand it deeply. You can iterate based on your feedback. And sometimes other people can also have the same problem, which is why you can actually build something valuable. A few ideas for you to take up, for you to start building. An AI agent that triages your emails and auto drafts responses based on specific categories. A tool that takes a job description, generates a study plan for you and possible interview questions, and performs a skill gap analysis for your behavioral rounds. An AI-powered meeting note summarizer that outputs action items in a specific format for your team. A Chrome extension that does an AI-powered product teardown whenever you scroll through a product. Anything that you feel is something that you want to solve, is something that you've seen around yourself, solve it. You can use Cursor, Lovable, V0, Replit, anything to build quickly, but I cannot stress this enough, document your thought process. Write what problem did you identify? How many users did you speak to? What was the strategy that you followed to validate? What was the strategy by which you are evaluating the product? How are you measuring success? How are you iterating on top of it? This document is worth 10x of the prototype itself. So don't just build randomly, build with purpose and get people to use things. Now week 7 and 8, which is further deeper into the same thing, now you understand, now you need to work on the AI product frameworks that you have to start understanding and learning. Right? The first framework that you have to understand is the Drive framework. Now this is a framework that is pretty popular and you have to understand it very well. But in Drive, D stands for data. So what data do you need for your AI product and where does it come from? And is that data clean? Research, what models and what LLMs can you use to fill in or to fit in this problem? Iterate, how will you build prototypes, experiment and test your product? Validate, measuring accuracy, driving user satisfaction and trust, and then finally execute, which is deploying, monitoring, and continuously improving the process. Basically, as an AIPM, you need to now start learning these frameworks so that you can start applying them both into your work and into your prototypes. The next framework is hypothesis-driven development for AI. Now here what happens is you understand to experiment in a controlled environment. You test your prompt, your RAG setup, your model choice, and then only once you are satisfied internally do you actually expose the product externally. Right? So another framework, very commonly used A/B testing framework that we use in natural product management as well. But in AIPM, it becomes a little more important because models can hallucinate here. And that's why you need to be very sure that you've done your A/B testing very well. The third framework is, of course, the build, buy, borrow decision that most AIPMs have to understand because there are so many AI tools, because every layer of an AI product can virtually be built by yourself very quickly. But knowing when you have to build it yourself, knowing when you have to buy it, knowing when you have to rent it is very, very important. Right? So understanding all of this is extremely important. And only when you start understanding it, start talking about it on LinkedIn. It's uncomfortable for most people, but do it anyway. Start posting about your LinkedIn. Don't post thought leadership and all that garbage. Post practical and specific content. Talk about the frameworks we talked about. Talk about that, hey, I did a teardown of Perplexity's AI search based on my Drive framework. Here is what I found. Or here is how I've built an AI agent that triages my email in 4 hours using an A10. Here is how I'm doing the evaluation for this. These are the 3 things that I got wrong after I implemented RAG inside my product. So don't just learn the frameworks that I said, actually talk about them specifically on your LinkedIn. It changes the game for you. Trust me, posting on LinkedIn adds so much value to your profile. You cannot imagine how much. Once you're posting on LinkedIn, it actually does 2 things. One, it forces you to clarify your own thinking because whenever you're posting something, you will make sure that you've read enough about it. And second, it builds a public proof of work that recruiters and hiring managers notice when they try to find someone who is adept at AI PMing or when they interview you and go through your profile. With that, we come to the end of month 2, which is 60 days have gone. And by now, you should have the following. You should have at least 3 published AI product teardowns. And again, I don't mean 2-slide, 5-slide AI product teardowns. Proper deep teardowns is what I want. Second, 1 working side project. Why do I say 1? It has to not be a single prompt and some prototype coming in. A proper well-created product with documented thinking alongside. And then your familiarity with the Drive framework, with the hypothesis-driven development, and all the frameworks that we talked about, and 5 or more LinkedIn product posts about how you're learning AIPM and how you're learning these frameworks, and where have you seen these frameworks get applied. Extremely important, but you have to do it. And sometimes maybe it's a little uncomfortable, but remember that this is what is going to separate you from everyone else. Now we come to phase 3, day 61 to 90, where you become undeniable. You've actually learned the language, you've built the proof. Now it's time to convert all of this into an offer in your hand with an AIPM written on it. The first couple of weeks, week 9 and 10, you focus on your resume and LinkedIn positioning. Your resume should of course be a one-pager unless you have more than 8 years of experience. It needs to be impact focused. You don't need to add any fluff and gimmicks there. Talk about the real things that you've done. And if you've not done it, build using AI and then add it to your resume. Every bullet point should follow the following format. Led what? That resulted in this. You can use the star format to write your CV points very well. I'm sure you must have studied that or know about that in the past. Now, a bad way of writing thing is I worked with engineers to develop a new feature X. A great way of writing it is that I led a team of 5 engineers to launch an AI-powered recommendation feature that increased user engagement by 45%. So try and be specific, use the star format to write down your CV points and obsess over each and every CV point. Ensure that every single CV point has gotten the attention that it deserves from you in terms of what is the input, what is the output, and how well it is written. If you don't have AIPM experience yet, use your side projects. Frame them in a way that they feel like your professional side projects. Sometimes what you can do is you can pick side projects within the domain of your company so that you can experiment and ask so that you can experiment it and say that this is a stretch project that you've added on top of your existing experience. It's a legitimate experience. It's a legitimate way of claiming AIPM as long as you've actually built it and as long as you've actually gone through the grind. Now on LinkedIn, your headline should sell, right? You should not say aspiring AIPM, aspiring APM, etc. Try product manager building AI powered products X company, right? Or company name. Your about section should also tell you a story. It should be about where you've been, how do you decide to pivot to AIPM, and what are the skill sets that you bring. Feature your best tear down or case study in the featured section of your LinkedIn. Very, very important. Once you have the resume and LinkedIn out of the way, week 10 and 11 is about interview prep. Now, AIPM interviews test 4 categories and you need to be ready for all of them. What are these 4 types of categories? The first is product design, which is to design an AI feature for company X. So it could be design an AI feature for Airbnb, design an AI feature for PhonePe, etc. It's a classic PM question, but it's coming to you with an AI twist. The trap is you sometimes can jump directly into AI and say, let's add a chatbot and so on. Instead, start with a user problem, just like how we do in normal product design questions. Then assess where AI is actually important and whether it is important or not. And then contextualize, use the knowledge that you have learned so far in the phase 1 and 2 of your learning and build out the answer from there. The second kind of question is metrics and success questions, where you talk about, how would you measure success for an AI product? Go beyond DAU and MAU. Understand what metrics do AI products use. Remember, you were learning about this in phase 2 and phase 1. Understand accuracy, hallucination rate, latency, user trust, task completion, cost per query, all of these metrics one by one, and know that these are the AI specific metrics that happen and learn them by heart. The third kind of question that people are asking in AIPM interviews a lot are RCA questions, which is again with an AI twist. So the AI features accuracy has dropped by so and so percentage. AI features hallucination has gone up. So what it tests is the fact that you can understand model drift, data pipeline issues, evaluation gaps, and so on and so forth, right? And you can then walk through a very structured investigation where you can display whatever we've learned in the earlier phases of this roadmap, right? And talk about models, hallucination rate, accuracy, and so on and so forth. The fourth kind of question that people are asking are the strategy and trade-off questions, right? On questions where should you actually build this AI feature or not? Should you build this AI-based system or not? This is again where your frameworks, the ones that you learned, the drive and the hypothesis and all that, they shine. You can talk through, the AI iron triangle that we talked about. Determine whether to invest in AI or whether to use predictive systems that already exist. At Ayuda, when I do mock interviews with people preparing for AIPM roles, this is actually the number one mistakes they do. What they do is they answer like they have mucked up what AI means and just parrot it out. They say large language models and RAG, etc., etc. But the moment I try to go deeper into it, I try to ask one step further, they don't know the inner workings of it. Knowing the terminologies actually gets you 0 points in AI interviews. Knowing understanding the depth, knowing the full picture actually gets the job. And to get better at it, you need practice. You need to practice your interviews as much as possible. So practice out loud, find a partner, do some mock interviews. I always tell my folks at Ayuda to practice as much as possible with me and get better at this role so that you understand the basics and also are able to answer questions when someone pushes you towards the limit and says, hey, why don't you go deep into this? At the end of week 11 and 12 is where you talk about your portfolio and you start your outreach. At this point, your portfolio should have 2 to 3 AI product teardowns, very well written, framework backed, properly built, a very strong side project with a full loop of problem, hypothesis, building, evaluate, and iteration baked in. Very optional but powerful is building projects tailored to the kind of company that you're applying to. So let's assume you're applying to Razorpay. So building an AI prototype for a fraud mechanism on payments in Razorpay is a great way of standing out, right? So that's of course another thing that you can keep adding into your portfolio. And finally, you start doing cold outreach, right? The one that I talked about, right? Building actual prototypes for the companies that you're applying to is a strong nuclear weapon to getting through cold outreaches. Imagine I am a PM at Vyapar and someone gives me an AI powered solution to a problem that I have been wondering of as a director of product here. It will immediately catch my attention and force me to talk to that person. So that is why building AI prototypes is important. Building it tailored to the job description that you are going up against or you are going for is even more important. So write down a small note around 150 words, lead with a specific observation and problem about their product, attach the full-blown portfolio link, and end up with a CTA of connecting with you or talking to you further if this is something that they find useful. You can use this to cold email them via LinkedIn. You can use this to cold email them via their email. There are tools like Lucia, Casper, Apollo, etc. that give you a lot of emails from LinkedIn profiles for free. You can use them. Of course, use them respectfully. Don't spam. If someone is not replying to you after 1 or 2 emails, respectfully stop bothering that. And finally, the last piece is try and find AI companies getting funded. A very easy hack is just go to Y Combinator's company directory, go to Product Hunt, go to fintech products like whatever is getting launched in the market on LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. Even Google will give you a great idea so that you can know what exactly or what are the companies that are exactly hiring right now, and then you can solve problems for them using the Razorpay example that I gave and actually pitch yourself as a very strong AIPM alternative. With that, your third month is over, and by the end of day 90, what you have is you've got a great polished AIPM resume and LinkedIn profile. You've got a great portfolio with teardowns, a side project, projects built towards the JDs that you're trying to target towards, and a full-blown arsenal of things to attack people or to get to people there. You've conducted or you've been part of multiple mock interviews with mentors, with peers, etc. And you've sent outreaches to at least 50 plus companies, and you would have 4 or 5 interviews in progress. This is where you become an AI PM. Now, before we wrap, some common mistakes of what people get wrong when they try to follow up this roadmap. Right? So let me give you the understanding from people I've interacted with at Ayuda or people in general who are part of my circle or who I have mentored. Right? I've always looked at it. The first mistake, I mentioned it earlier as well, people go in too deep too early. They try to become ML experts where that's not even required. When they learn, they get confused and they feel that I don't know ML, how will I survive? The point is know what you need to know and only then learn it. Don't learn things that you don't need to know. You are not becoming a ML engineer. You are just becoming a PM with a relevant applied AI layer on top of it. After you've got a job and now at your job you're required to learn ML, no, go ahead, definitely learn from there. So the first mistake, thinking that you need to know depth of ML like a PhD student when you're trying to become an AIPM. The second big mistake is people feel a lot of the things that I've talked about in the roadmap, the prototyping, the learning, the creating of portfolio, all of it, the thinking can be outsourced to ChatGPT. So they create their documents completely using AI. Now trust me, nothing puts you off or nothing puts a hiring manager off when they see something that is AI generated. So don't give AI slop in the name of your portfolio. Your portfolio is the most important thing that you can use to pitch yourself as an AIPM. And if you ask or if you take the risk of putting everything that is AI generated there, you're actually doing a lot of harm to your credentials. So second mistake, letting AI do all the things, not realizing when you should use Claude or GPT or when you should not, right? Again, think of this way. If someone is hiring and they look at something that's extremely generated by AI, they might as well feel that this is something that Claude could do for me. Why do I need to hire this person? So big mistake. The third is they build projects for the sake of it. They don't document the thought process. Like I said earlier as well, a single prompt can give you a decent UI and you may feel progress, but proper projects solve problems, right? Write it in your notebook. Projects that solve problems, and they cannot be made with a single prompt. You have to spend time on it, you have to spend time with Lovable, you have to spend time with Bold, Cursor, whatever you're using to build. Don't ship something that is bad, that actually hurts your chances. Ship something where every single button, every that copyright mark at the bottom, every single thing has been thoughtfully catered, thoughtfully built, and only then added to your portfolio, and it solves a real problem as well. If that doesn't happen, nothing else really happens. Finally, you're never going to feel ready. The people who get AIPM jobs right now as well don't really know everything. They just started earlier. So AI is of course new and good enough for you to actually make a big dent right now because the bar is very low and you can actually reach that bar with a very minimal effort of the 90 days that I mentioned. So all the best for this plan. Go through this video again, go through things that I've mentioned again. It's a very dense video because I did not want to compensate on the depth. So that's why I've gone in as deep as I could, but definitely spend more and more time over this video. Create a planner, put it on your Google Calendar and understand all the things that I have mentioned in this video for you to transition to an AIPM role. I wish you the very best and let me know after 90 days when you get that AIPM offer letter. Finally, for those of you who've made it this far, let me give you a quick recap in 60 seconds on what all you need to do in this 90-day roadmap. Month 1, learn the language, understand AI ML fundamentals from a PM lens, understand predictive generative AI, prompt engineering, RAG, fine-tuning, the AI iron triangle, and get hands-on with tools like Claude, Cursor, Lovable, N8N, etc. Month 2, get your hands dirty. Build several AI product prototypes, conduct AI product teardowns, build a real side project end to end. Don't just write one prompt and be done with it. Start posting on LinkedIn, learn the frameworks that AIPMs need to know, the drive framework, the hypothesis building, and so on and so forth, and start posting about that on LinkedIn. And then month 3 is become undeniable. Polish your resume, post on LinkedIn as an AIPM, present your portfolio, talk about the problems that you've solve problems, cater to the job descriptions that you're applying to, outreach several people through email and LinkedIn and land that job. So that's about it. Once again, all the very best. May you get that AIPM role extremely soon. I'll see you in the next one.